My wife and I got married about 5 years ago. The two of us hit it off super well, and we always loved to do nerdy things together. She and I were both gamers. We loved anime and sharing our love of nerd culture with each other. She meant the world to me, and I always thought things were good. We fell in love really fast, about 3 years before we got married. In fact, I met her at a convention, and I thought that we would be a match made in heaven. We started off talking about our love for Legend of Zelda, to even discussing the latest One Piece chapter. Some people look for the one, their player two, their everything. For me, that was her. We got married a little fast and had this really nerdy wedding where we even encouraged people to dress up. However, we didn't get a chance to go to conventions. Due to our jobs and how much they cost, we rarely had a chance to. However, I wanted to make our 5-year anniversary special. I didn't make a lot of money, but I made enough to take care of her. I surprised her for her birthday with tickets to one of the biggest Comic Cons out there. It was one that people dreamed of going to. She was ecstatic, and I was so excited to go. Now, I never did well with women. In fact, I could never really pick up when they actually liked me until after. It was only after the fact that I realized it. Even with my wife, it took me 3 long conversations on Discord to realize that she had the hots for me and wanted to get to know me better. When we went to the convention, things were great. A gal dressed as slave Princess Leia kept gushing over my stormtrooper costume that I put together at the last minute. After she left, my wife pulled me to the side, talking about how that gal was all over me. I told her I didn't even realize it. I was so bad about reading the room that I didn't pick up the signs. My wife was a little bit frustrated, but we continued on with our day. It was a 3-day convention, after all. We went to this meetup, and that's when he came in. He was dressed as Han Solo. My wife, who was also dressed as Princess Leia, started talking to him. The two of them started talking a lot more, getting closer. I stepped in and mentioned I was the husband. The guy said it was nice to meet me, but refused to make eye contact. After he left, I confronted my wife. She said there was nothing going on, and he was just a nice guy that liked my outfit. She was the bigger Star Wars fan, so naturally, she liked gushing out. I brushed it off, thinking it was nothing. The weekend continued. The next day, my wife woke up sick and exhausted. I said that I would go down and be back later on. I left, but part of me couldn't shake what happened the other night. I chalked it up to maybe my own imagination. However, my wife wasn't answering my messages. We still had one more day before the end of the convention. I bought her something to give to her after I got back up. When I approached the room, I heard sounds. Moans and such. I dismissed it, thinking it was maybe my wife. When I opened the door, I saw her there, looking at me. It was clear she did something. I confronted her, but she said that there was nothing. I looked around, trying to find someone, but there was nothing. I dismissed it. The convention passed. My wife grew distant. She worked longer hours and came home exhausted. I asked if she wanted to watch a movie together, but she would tell me that she was busy. I couldn't shake the moans that I heard. While my wife showered, I saw her Discord notifications were turned off. She never turned these off during the duration of our relationship, so something was amiss. I opened her phone, surprised that the passcode was the same, and I began to read them. They were messages from the guy that she met at the Star Wars meetup. He kept flirting with her, and they exchanged pictures. He even mentioned he wanted to roleplay with her, and she was all about it. I angrily set the phone down and pretended like I never saw anything. My wife asked me if anything was wrong, and I lied and said I was fine. However, it was not fine. I researched how to get a divorce. This would be quite hard to serve, but I wanted to humiliate her and show her that I knew everything. I told her about another convention and how I wasn't going to be able to make it to this one, but she could go. Her eyes lit up slightly, even though we wouldn't be together. This was my partner, someone that I wanted to be with forever, who just tossed me away. It was a gut punch, but I couldn't let her on. On the day of the convention, I followed my plan. I did some research on this guy. They actually worked pretty closely together. I went to the convention and found them, of course, right in front of her favorite voice actors. That's when my plan came in. I watched them get in line and hid behind them. I wore a mask to hide my face, but watched them like a hawk. When they got closer, the voice actor asked her about how she was. She pulled the man closer and said she was having a great day. They shared a kiss, and then that's when I made my plan. I moved right in between them, pulling off the mask and looking directly at my wife. She dropped her hand and looked at me. She asked what I was doing. I argued with her, saying that I caught her with him and that he cheated on me with him. She said that wasn't true, but I got the Discord messages, putting them right down on the table. The other attendees watched, shocked that I would even do something like this. However, I didn't want to let this go. I announced to everyone there that my wife was a cheater and she cheated on me with this guy, whom she also met at a convention. The celebrity stood up, said that he needed a break, and then disappeared. My wife's eyes filled with tears, and she begged me to listen to her. However, I couldn't. I told her that she lied to me, saying she was going alone. I told her that I knew about the meeting up, about the late nights at the office gaming with the girls. I called them one day and asked. They said they didn't hear a thing about a gaming night since they were busy preparing for the holidays. My wife stood there, embarrassed. She told me that she wanted an open relationship and thought about asking me. I told her that I didn't want to listen to this. She was upset as well that I stepped in like that. However, I knew that she had messed up. We got home and I grabbed my things. Staying in a hotel, I grabbed all of my things and contacted an attorney so that we could get the paperwork ready to be filed. She tried to convince me to stay and that we should have an open relationship. She tried to say that I could sleep with other women and she could sleep with men. I never wanted that. I wanted her. She was my player too, my everything. My actions got traction. Someone recorded me embarrassing my wife and showed it all over social media. I proceeded with the divorce and I got the house and all our things. I sold it though because I didn't want to be reminded of the painful memories of the time we shared together. I don't know what happened to my wife. The nerd scene knew all about this, and it was a huge stink on Twitter and other places for a while. Her boss eventually found out because of what they saw, and I'm not sure if she stayed or not. Frankly, I don't care. My quest for love continues, but not with a cheating woman like her. OP, that is awful, and I'm sorry you had to lose someone who meant the world to you. That open relationship was definitely your wife's way of getting forgiveness for cheating. You never wanted that, and she should have listened to you. I know she meant a lot to you, especially since you two were huge nerds and gamers together. From what you described and the messages, it sounds like he was ready to take it all. I know it's painful, but I hope you're able to recover and still enjoy your hobbies in the future. Now on to our next story. My wife, 32 female, and I, 35 male, have always wanted kids. We tried our hardest to make this a dream. She mentioned to me early on, when we started dating, how she wanted to be a mom. This was 10 years ago, and I told her that if we got married, I would make that dream a reality. She said she would like that. So 5 years into dating, we got married. It was a small ceremony, but my wife and I weren't the showy types. We like to keep things simple. I had a job at a bank, and she worked as a graphic designer at a company. I know she and my best friend Greg worked together because he was the marketing director. He had a girlfriend that he loved deeply, and we would go out on double dates together. Greg also knew how much I wanted to be a father and constantly supported me. My wife and I tried, and for a while, we did everything we could to get pregnant. From different home remedies to even talking to doctors. However, no matter how much we tried, it didn't work. I was desperate, and while we didn't want to do IVF if we could, it almost came down to it. My wife was growing upset because of this. She told me to take a sperm test, but I was told I was healthy as a horse. She was healthy too. One night, after talking, I said that I would pray and see if maybe God would answer. I'm not religious, but I did it for her. Perhaps it was out of desperation or something else. Then, about a month later, my wife missed her period. We thought it was it. We took a pregnancy test, and she was pregnant. We were so happy about this, and I was ecstatic. However, we lost it shortly after. My wife was devastated, but I told her that we would try again. We always could. We tried again a couple months later. She did get pregnant, but then she lost it. We're not sure why. I told her the third time's the charm. So it was, On our third attempt, she was pregnant. The doctor monitored her like a hawk to make sure her baby lived. We went through the first 8 weeks with no problem. We held our breath as she went through the first trimester. She made it. By week 12, the doctor believed we were in the clear. He also told us that we'd be having twins. To think after all of this trying, all of these attempts, we finally had twins. I told Greg, and he was happy. My wife was glowing. Everything seemed like it was perfect until week 24. My wife woke me up in the middle of the night, panicking because she didn't feel the babies moving or kicking. She cried out in pain and raced to the bathroom. She went to the bathroom, and she reported there was blood. We immediately went to the ER. Sure enough, she lost the babies. The doctor had to dilate her to evacuate them, removing them from the uterus. They induced partial labor into her. After it was over, my wife was hollow, like she lost a part of herself. After that, everything changed. She didn't want to try again, not after the last time. It traumatized her. It killed me inside. I wanted to help her, to be there for her. I took her out to dinner, double dating with Greg and his girlfriend. It surprised me that Greg wasn't engaged, but he told me that they were in the process of getting a house so they could move out of their place. After that, my wife drowned herself in her work. I tried to get her to come down and watch movies or go out, but she didn't want to. Greg was busy as well. I thought about asking Greg if my wife was acting all right, but he said she was just a little stressed out. They had a huge deadline to work with. My wife was constantly gone, and when she came back, she seemed almost exasperated with me. I asked her what I did wrong, and she said nothing. I saved some money and asked her if we should try IVF. She said no, she didn't want to. It made me upset because it felt like I was the problem. Maybe I was, but I even had doctors check me out to make sure everything was okay. My wife became different, almost like a shell of a person. She would hide her phone, becoming more secretive. One night, while she was showering, I needed to find my phone. I pressed the Find My Android function. A phone rang, but it wasn't mine. It was my wife's, which she left in a bag. Curiosity got the better of me when I opened it. I turned it off, but I saw text messages from Greg on there. They didn't show up on the lock screen, but they were there when the home screen appeared. They were flirty texts. I opened up the rest of the messages. Sure enough, they were more of the same. Pictures were sent, and my wife even said Greg could put a baby in her. Greg mentioned that his girlfriend was nice, but he could make her dreams come true of being a mom. It disgusted me. I spent all this time with that dream, only to hear my best friend doing this. I had to get back at them. One night, while she worked late, I set up my plan. I placed an order for a marketing strategy using a fake name. I came after hours, despite them saying they were closed. The door was open, and I walked inside. When I got to the floor where she worked, I heard sounds. They were having sex. I stepped inside, red in the face, as Greg literally said to my wife he would put a baby in her. I was livid. I told my wife she was a cheater and I knew everything. She begged and pleaded with me to listen, saying that Greg could be a surrogate for them, but I was disgusted. She cheated on me, all because she wanted something that I couldn't give to her. When I got home, I packed my things and got a hotel. I took video evidence and sent it to her boss, firing both of them after the divorce went through. I got everything. My wife cheated, and I spent all this time thinking it was a problem when, really, it was her. I sold the house and got a condo far away, working at another bank. I'm not dating anymore. I don't want to after all that happened. Greg and I aren't friends anymore. I told his girlfriend, and they broke up. I don't know what happened to Greg and my wife. Maybe they got together. Maybe not. All I knew was with no house and no job, their lives were much harder. OP, this is awful, and I'm so sorry that happened. You did your best. You couldn't help it, and she blamed it all on you when it wasn't your fault. Cheating after having 2 stillborns is messed up. I understand grief, but this is not the way to go about it. She should have waited to try again, but I guess she chose infidelity instead. I'm glad you and Greg aren't friends anymore. If a friend did that to me, I'd cut things off right away. It's gross that he would pretend to be your friend and act like you're cool just to get close and have sex with your wife. He's saying that he would put a baby in her, and all that is also really gross. It really stinks that you thought you found happiness, only for someone to just treat you like that. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.